All right, sorry about the interruption. I guess that's what happens when we do live videos and I'm still in my office. So anyway, to continue this drawing of Magilla Gorilla, um, I was talking about how best way to get your composition in your drawings is these really loose, rough lines, and keep it really loose. And then once you got a basic shape, then go in and tighten those lines up, add more detail until you really think everything's set. Then you can come in and actually put in stuff like now we're doing his mouth and the smallest details, his teeth and jaw and stuff. And always be just watching where all these lines fall. Like when I bring that cheek down, where does it land? Well, it lands right on the tip of his tie here. All these lines, relationships together, like if you can get those right, then his chin comes up from a little below the point of the tie on this side. And then when we bring that suspender across it, it kind of hits the corner of his chin there, comes down. And then the distance between the edge of the suspender and his stomach right there, like it's about half-ish between there and like this arm. Actually, that showed me that I'm a little too close. Bring it right about here. And then his pants, like they hit kind of up his wrist just a little bit. There's a point here that rounds just over to his knuckles. And then the back of his arm is almost straight down. A little bit of fur there. Palm of the hand there and pinky. Everybody always talks about how hands are some of the hardest things to draw. Like one thing I learned in college, a great way is always draw the fingers thinner than you think. Now this is different because it's a cartoon, it's a gorilla, but when you're drawing humans, like always draw the fingers thinner than you feel like you want to, because they almost accidentally always end up looking like gloves because we always draw them too thick. Like with humans too, we tend to always, all of us tend to draw eyes way too big. All right. Let's get a little gorilla song in you. We've got a gorilla for sale. Magilla Gorilla for sale. Won't you buy him? Take a moment, try him. Gorilla for sale. In the window, Magilla Gorilla, full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Come on, a little gorilla, you can call your own. A gorilla moving with you when you're all alone. This is the Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beagle, with Mushmouth and Fucking Foot, and Ricochet Rabbit and Goofball. Forever, Magilla Gorilla for sale.
How much is that gorilla in the window?
Take our advice at any price. A gorilla must appear in mighty night. Gorilla, Magilla Gorilla for sale. We've got a gorilla for sale. Magilla Gorilla for sale. Won't you buy him? Take a moment, try him. Gorilla for sale. See in the window, Magilla Gorilla, full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Come on, a little gorilla, you can call your own. A gorilla moving with you when you're all alone. This is the Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beagle, with Mushmouth and Fucking Foot, and Ricochet Rabbit and Goofball. Forever, Magilla Gorilla for sale.
How much is that gorilla in the window?
Take our advice at any price. A gorilla must appear in mighty night. all alone. A gorilla movie with you when you're all alone. This is the Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beetle, with Mushmouth and Pumpkin Foot, and Ricky Shea Rabbit and Goofball. Forever, I am a gorilla for sale.
How much you got Gorilla in the window?
Take car and light at any price. A gorilla must be rated mighty nice. Gorilla, Magilla, gorilla for He's not a gorilla for sale. Magilla gorilla for sale. Won't you buy him? Take a moment, Ryan. Gorilla for sale. See in the window, Magilla gorilla. Full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Come on, a little gorilla, you can call your own. A gorilla movie with you when you're all alone. This is the Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beetle, with Mushmouth and Pumpkin Foot, and Ricky Shea Rabbit and Goofball. Forever, Magilla Gorilla for sale.
How much you got Gorilla in the window?
Take car and light at any price. A gorilla must be rated mighty nice. Gorilla, Magilla gorilla for sale.
All right. The pencil sketch. It's a little off. Like, I'm not going to let it bother me too much. These daily drawings are more for practice. I don't need to get them perfect. Like, just noticing how the top of his head is actually a bit smaller. Actually, that is going to bother me. I got to fix it. One thing I learned in my art classes in college is, when you're drawing something, like you're drawing from a reference photo, let's say you're drawing a human face or whatever, you have to remember that nobody knows, unless you're trying to draw somebody famous or something, but nobody knows what that drawing looks like. So as long as your proportions aren't unhuman so that people recognize it no matter what, nobody's going to know. Like, if you get the wrong kind of tie or whatever on the guy or something, unless they see your reference photo, they're not going to know that you were off on it. And like this particular frame that I'm drawing in Magilla, like, you can't even see it, so you don't know that this was off. So I could just leave it, but it's bothering me. So. I think his hat's a bit smaller too. Then I'm just gonna ink this real quick after I get that hat done. Bowler hat. Still too big. One of the things I'm always trying to work against is overworking a drawing or painting or whatever. Like, there's always a point that you kind of get to that's like a fresh drawing is always nicer to look at, easier, and a lot of times when we overthink stuff and work it, it just makes a mess out of it. That's one thing these daily drawings are helping me too, is have more confident lines, which you can definitely tell when you look at a drawing. Like, just one of the ways to help that is to, like I was saying earlier, like, look where a line lands, and then it's a lot easier for you to be confident and draw it all the way through without sketchiness or stopping in the middle. See, I'll look up and see like how much I can see and remember at once, and then look back down at the drawing and try to get that all in like one stroke without sketchiness. Because I've learned too with like my career is I'm a graphic designer, and when you design things with Adobe Illustrator, curves and stuff, like you notice how you're trying to get a curve to match something that you want, like the smallest little points or stops in a curve really make a difference in how that overall curve looks. Like one of the ways, like if you're trying to match a curve in Adobe Illustrator and it's just it doesn't seem to be fitting right, is a lot of times the problem is there's too many points in the curve. I don't know how this translates to hand drawing, but probably stops actually. Like when I'm trying to draw a line, every time I stop and like, let's say like this arm, like if I stop right here and then start again, there's a tiniest little break in that line, and your eye actually picks that up. It's kind of amazing the little nuances that the naked eye can pick up. And so like in Adobe Illustrator, the translation there is that every time there's a point on a line, it's sort of like a break. And even tiny little ones you can see. And so like when you're trying to make a smooth curve, one of the best ways to smooth that out is to delete points out of that line, as many as you can, and still have the curve, the shape that you need it to be. And so like with drawing here, you really just like, if it's possible, every line that you do, you want to try and make it one smooth, long line without stopping. Especially in the cartoon world, lines are just very straight and straightforward. You can kind of get away with broken lines more with like realistic drawing, actually, because it can be hidden in nuances that are actually there. This strap's going to be one, like without practice, like I was having a hard time with something like this. I would, okay, like that's going to be one long smooth line. Like, how am I going to do that? And then I would draw it real slow, It's like, well, slow ends up putting a lot of little breaks in the line, but fast gives you a nice smooth line. So what do? Well, fast is the answer, but with practice, just aim where you're going to go with that line and just go all the way down with it. And it just takes practice to be able to draw a long, smooth line without breaks in it. I'm actually still not as good as I want to be. Sorry, no message here. I need to be scrolling too. So yeah, like I hate to use this as an excuse or like a crutch, but I have a kind of a weak wrist because of an accident I had about 10 years ago. I broke my neck, and I was actually, my hands were partially paralyzed for a little while. I gained back a lot of my motion, but I've sort of, over the years, I wasn't quite sure what was wrong. Like I knew my my drawings were a little bit different. There was something not quite as, I don't know, something was wrong. And I've come to realize it's the muscle here is atrophied, so I can't hold the pencil as tight. And then also my wrist just isn't as strong as it used to be. But like try to turn things like that positive. That's helped me sort of learn how to draw more from the shoulder, which is harder with small drawings. But I remember my teachers in college and stuff always trying to teach us that you have smoother lines when you don't draw all in the wrist, and that's kind of a bad habit I grew up just doing. Is I drew small drawings all the time, and I drew from the wrist. And now this is helping me try to learn how to draw more. And it's hard, again, like with a small drawing, like this is on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So a drawing's this small, it's kind of hard. But your drawings are smoother when you can draw from the shoulder, which kind of seems crazy because that's so far away, especially if you're someone like me who's always drawn from the wrist. Like trying to draw way back there, it just seems so shaky and indefinite at first.
We've got a gorilla for sale. Magilla Gorilla for sale. Won't you buy him? Take a moment, buy him. Gorilla for sale. See in the window, Magilla Gorilla. Full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Just a little gorilla you can call your own. A gorilla movie with you when you're all alone. This is the Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beagle, with Mushmouth and Puckinfoot, and Ricochet Rabbit and Goofball. Gorilla, Magilla Gorilla, for sale.
How much is that gorilla in the window?
Take our advice at any price. A gorilla like Magilla is fine. Gorilla, Magilla Gorilla, for sale.
A lot of stuff I've talked about in previous videos is one of the things I'm enjoying getting better at is line quality, sculpted lines rather than just equal line weight around drawing. So, but when I get to this stage, right after I've done pencil and I'm starting to put ink on, I start with just an equal weight line all the way around because everything at least gets that much. And so we do that first. Just get it all the way around the drawing. And then when that's about how I want it, at least everything's got one line. And that might be good for, I don't know, a coloring book page or something. But then I go over, I'm actually, for this series, I do a lot specific to this series, but because of the Papermate pen I've used, it's actually a cheap pen I accidentally bought and I actually like because I can get line quality out of it. An older one I've used more, the end has gotten a little bit smushed out. And so I go back with that one and do an outline just to give it a thick outline all the way around the drawing. And this really gives it like a finished look. And I'm still learning how to best incorporate that because it does look pretty cool when I just go all the way around the outer line of the character. But then I'm learning like some of the inner lines too look good. Or like, let's say like just now with this hand, the outer line goes here and then it takes off on its bottom. But then that leaves the rest of his arm one thin single line stroke. So we go in here and just finish off that arm. Well, it's like, well, if I'm going to do inner lines too, then why not just do them all thick? Well, you don't want to do that because then you lose that cool line quality, that sculpted line. So what I'm learning how to do is then when you come into this line, taper it, like sharpen it. And it takes actually like doing some real sculpting. Like you have to think about it. Like, I mean, it's something you can't just, I don't know, you can do just about anything on the computer these days, but like you can't just go in and tell the computer like, oh, up the stroke. Like if I were to do this in Illustrator, like just add thickness to the stroke, well, the computer is going to do that to every line. Give it one big thick line, which does not look good. So you actually have to manually go in and sculpt these lines and choose the ones that need to be thicker. No, you can do some cool things like choose brushes, like in Illustrator or Photoshop, like choose calligraphy brushes or stuff like that, and then apply that stroke to those drawings. Then it can look really cool. But I don't know. I think the older I get, the more I like hand drawings and kind of like the more old school way of doing things. Like I just feel like computers just make things too easy, and that's coming from a graphic designer. And like I actually love doing things. Like I love custom artwork in Adobe Illustrator. Like that, it's a look, and I like it. I do. But I think I will always like more hand-drawn stuff. Just there's that human element to it, like the small nuances and the screw-ups and the roughness of the paper. And I know they can simulate almost all of this stuff on computers, but still, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of like I think I will never quit reading hand or real books instead of going to digital books. Maybe I'm just an old fogey. I don't know. Just my preference. Because I think one thing with digital art, like there's so much of it out there now, and it's really impressive. It really is. Like the stuff you can achieve with digital painting and stuff. But it's also just so, I just feel like a little bit of it's cheating. Like every time you screw up a line, you can just Command Z, try again. Or like you can even use guides to help you on the computer. And so then it's like, well, how much of that's actually the computer designing it? And it's not really your own skills or anything. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know where you draw that line because I have friends who are technology guys, early adopters, and they always have the latest, greatest everything. And they're always arguing with me. And they always kind of go back to the argument of, well, are you just going to, like, why don't you go back to horse and buggy if you hate technology so much? And I don't know. All right, so that's the outlines. I'll let them dry for just a minute because my eraser of choice is a gum eraser or kneaded eraser. But these things, they pick up all the ink, or they pick up ink, and then they start getting really black. And the way that you can prolong them is to just knead it and pull it apart. But there's only so much they can take. And I think specifically for this pen, I'm using the Papermate Flare. It leaves more that the eraser can pick up. Like like if I were doing like real ink, this is real ink, but like India ink and stuff, like once that dries, it really doesn't pick up a lot. I've noticed like it'll pick up some, this like with this Papermate, like pick it up and then lay it back down in little smudges everywhere and kind of ruins the original. And what I'm going to do real quick after I get this kind of cleaned up is go scan it before I put color on there. Then that way I have like a kind of save this generation of the drawing. And I think it's kind of cool. These black and white drawings make really good coloring pages. I had this idea a while back. I'm going to collect all these and make a coloring book for my kids. All right, so if you can just hang in there and scan this real quick.
Magilla Gorilla for sale. Want to buy him? Take a moment, Brian. Gorilla for sale. See in the window, Magilla Gorilla, full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Come on, a little gorilla, you can call your own.
here we are, ready to put some color. And another thing about my series, it really is just a daily drawing I'm doing while I'm at work still. And so I don't really have all my good art supplies and stuff that I have at home with me. I'm also trying to be quick. So just using the colored pencils and stuff that I have here at my office. So it's just a cheap set. So it's just a cheap Crayola. I think it's like a 24 set. So finding exact colors is a little hard, but it doesn't need to be exact, I suppose. I do like to try to get it close to what. I think that's red pants, but are they mahogany? I don't know. I'm realizing too, like so many of the shows I'm so familiar with growing up are these days I've not even heard of, especially the lesser known ones. Like some of my childhood shows have been revamped and stuff, so kids today know who they are, but like Transformers and things. But some of these lesser known shows, especially the ones like, I mean, this is a 60s cartoon, and so it's even before my time a bit. They're sort of just disappearing in time. Might be like a fun little factoid somewhere, but like most people don't really know who they are. I did a bunch. My wife was kind of like, "Oh, are you drawing those cartoons nobody knows about anymore?" I guess so, honey. I guess I'm just turning into an old man. Not even quite 40 yet. That's all perspective, you know? If you're younger than me, that sounds old. If you're older than me, I still think I'm a youngin'. That's what my dental hygienist said yesterday at the dentist. She's like, "You're still young. Take care of those teeth." Thanks. I feel old. One of the ways to feel old is to hang out with younger people, and then you start really realizing all the things that are like normal to you, old people stuff to them. A few years ago, I was a Young Life the volunteer leader for Young Life, which is like a Christian organization. So I was, how old was I? A little over 30. I think I was like 33. And most of the college students, you know, are between 18 and 22. And for the longest time, they thought I was in my 20s, which is flattering. They thought I was younger than I am. It was just funny to see their shock when they found out. This one guy's like, he was doing a report and he wanted to know like my age. It's like, "So what are you, like 25, 6, maybe 28? I kept pointing up and his eyebrows just got really high. But I always I'm impressed by young people who hang out with people older than them. I was the opposite, especially in my 20s. Like I always hung out with people younger than me. Just the way kind of things ended up. Like I had lots of really young friends and stuff, which is cool because it makes you kind of feel like you're still young and stuff, hanging out with them and doing the things they do. But I think there's so much wisdom to be gained by the people who are older than us, even if they're just a year older than you. But obviously people who have really been through a lot, you know, they have a lot to share, and it's like it's kind of sad that when we're young we don't seem to really care about that very much. The older I get, the more I appreciate the wisdom of older people.
We've got a gorilla for sale. Magilla Gorilla for sale. Won't you buy him? Take a moment, try him. Gorilla for sale. See in the window, Magilla Gorilla, full of charm and appeal. Handsome, elegant, intelligent, sweet. He's really ideal. Come on, a little gorilla you can call your own. A gorilla who's ready when you're all alone. The Magilla Gorilla Show, starring me and Mr. Beagle, with Mush Mouse and Fucking Puss, and Ricky Shea Rabbit and Goofball. Gorilla, Magilla Gorilla, for sale.
How much is that gorilla in the window?
Take our advice at any price. A gorilla, Magilla is fine. Gorilla, Magilla, Gorilla, for
Sorry about all that noise. Yeah, and I'm also like I'm just trying to color really fast, so it's probably not the best coloring job ever in the world. But it's fun to get some color in them and just see like how it really just makes the character kind of come alive when there's color in the image. There's so many different ways to color. That's stuff I'm wanting to get better at and learn more of it. Color and lighting and different mediums and tools for color. So this series I'm just sticking with color pencil just to kind of give them all the same look and stuff. I don't know, sometimes I really like color pencil and sometimes I don't. I think the thing I like least about color pencil is like sometimes it seems like you covered an area really well, and then you kind of step back and look at it and you can see your stroke still. And if I had more time, I would be more careful about that and fill stuff in better. Whereas marker, you pretty much, if you kind of take your time, like if you've gone over an area, you've got it. And I think maybe after I finish this series, I want to do a series in marker. I've seen some stuff that some artists are doing out there with marker that's really cool. And for quick drawings like this, like a daily drawing, that's probably all I can do is like color pencil or marker. Like it's way too involved to get paints out and stuff. I would like to learn better techniques with paint, and I really want to learn lighting. Like some of the children's books I've been reading to my kids are some really inspiring images and techniques and stuff. Comment below and tell me, like, do you remember Magilla Gorilla? If you do, you're as old as me or older. If you don't, what kind of cartoons are nostalgic to you? It's kind of astounding how many shows that Hanna-Barbera put out. This is a 60s Hanna-Barbera cartoon, just like a lot of them. And then if you go and look at how many voices Mel Blanc was the voice of, wow, it's almost all of them. All right, there's Magilla Gorilla. He's sitting in the window trying to be sold. They're always trying to sell him.